Good evening and welcome to the Claw Studio here at the Royal Opera House. I'm Matt Kane, and in this Insight, I'm taking you behind the scenes of A Single Man. Based on Christopher Isherwood's pioneering novel, this original contemporary ballet by Jonathan Watkins features new live music from John Grant and Jasmin Rodgman. A vital portrait of queer love and loss, A Single Man opens in the Limbury Theatre on the 8th of September. To tell us more about the production, I am delighted to be joined by choreographer and director Jonathan Watkins. Jonathan, thank you for joining us. So, A Single Man has a special place in the canon of queer literature, but for those people who might not have read the novel, could you share what drew you to this story and why you felt it was right for a ballet adaptation?
Yeah, I can try. Hi, everyone. I read it when I was a bit younger, but I revisited it in 2017, and it just struck me as such a creative and poetic book about one person's grief of losing their partner, their real love, at a time when perhaps people didn't even imagine or think that two men could love each other that much. So they didn't quite understand the grief. So that was like one element. And then this kind of relationship between mind and body kind of spoke to me. It was like what was going on with me at the time, like that trust in body as you're, can't stop time. And yeah, I was just really inspired by the kind of duality and the split that Christopher Isherwood wrote about mind and body, and those kind of conscious and subconscious, and driver and vehicle. And it really just kind of excited me and inspired me to think about how that could be told through movement and also through music and song.
Right, so let's talk about how you are telling it. Unusually, with the character of George, your central character, you've gone for this split between voice and body, with John Grant voicing the internal monologue and Ed Watson alternating with Jonathan Goddard, embodying the character's physical presence. Can you tell us what inspired you to explore that duality? Was it as simple as the internal monologue, the narration in the book, or was it something else?
Ooh, I'll try and do this as simple as I can.
We've got 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay. So basically, it was many different things about, my own practice about telling stories, physically with physical language, but also, what you can't tell with movement. And I think I'm going to misquote this, but I think Balanchine said something like, you can't really tell if it's, your stepmother. That's not verbatim, by the way. Look that up. So it's hard to say, is that my mother or my stepmother through dance, through non-verbal, choreography? And so I wanted to kind of challenge what can be told through body and through interaction and the dramaturgical elements of choreography and how they interact. But then I just love this idea of being able to zoom into George's mind and be able to kind of explore the themes and the story through that way as well.
It seems to me that it opens up a lot more opportunities than just conventional voiceover in a film with an actor, the physical presence, or the narration in a novel. It seems like there's a lot more potential.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it's not just anyone, it's John Grant, and I was such a fan and inspired by his amazing melody and lyrics, and so inspired by his existing work, and I just thought there was a great overlap of the things that he'd already explored in his original music, and so I wanted to see, what his response would be, so then I could respond to that as well, and that we could sort of all respond together in a collaborative way.
Love it. We are going to be talking to John later, but let's just now talk about the first run in Manchester at the Manchester International Festival in July. It was a huge success. Congratulations. Did you make any discoveries in that first staging that you weren't expecting?
I mean, what we do, it's you can imagine it, but you have to work and collaborate with everyone, and they bring so much surprise and so amazing artistry that I could not imagine on my own. And so there's a parameter that I imagine, and then there's I kind of imagine it like I've drawn like a picture and then they're like colouring it in. That's kind of
I love that.
yeah, trademark. Put it on a t-shirt. So basically, yeah, I kind of imagine it like that, and then like I can imagine some colours and some structure with design and music, but then yeah, I can imagine a blue, but maybe someone comes up with a different shade of that blue, and it turns out in a different way and cohesive, hopefully.
Well, and obviously you've worked in the Limbury a lot before, so when you're imagining how it's going to work in the Limbury, you've presumably got a very clear idea. Can you tell us if you're going to be refining or tweaking it, or if you have to make certain changes for the space?
There's a few tiny things that we're changing, but what we're most excited about is like the intimacy of the space and the kind of like the curvature that we hope will feel like everyone's in this kind of shared experience. I mean, one of the themes that Christopher Isherwood at the end of the book is talking about is like a collective consciousness that we're all in this together. It's like a very kind of, sometimes it's a bit subtle, but sometimes it's kind of like that we're all in it together, and it's his kind of spirituality, I think. But what I've tried...
Is that the rock pool as well?
Yeah, the rock pools.
Love the rock pool.
Yeah, that we're all in these rock pools, that we connect with the people that we connect or love, or friends, or anyone in our rock pool, and that one by one they drift away, and we all collectively share the space of the sea and the ocean. And so I kind of, yeah, in my head, I wanted to like create that kind of shared experience, hopefully, that the audience can then be like invited into it at the end, hopefully. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you for that introduction to A Single Man. We are going to get into some rehearsal shortly, but before we do, please help me welcome former principal of the Royal Ballet, Ed Watson, and singer-songwriter John Grant. Thank you for joining us, John and Ed. So, John, I'm going to start with you. You're best known as a singer-songwriter, and we'll hear more later about your collaboration with Jonathan and Jasmin. But how did it feel to step into playing this role of George's inner voice in a ballet?
I mean, it felt, once I got my head around it a little bit, because I was a little bit not knowing whether I could enter into that realm with Jonathan. He was sort of on my case for a couple of years, telling me that I was the right man for the job, and I didn't really know whether it was something that I wanted to do, and I hadn't read the book. And I've been thinking to myself, you know, I couldn't believe that I got to the age of 57 without having read that book, because it might have saved my life when I was younger, you know, in many, many different types of situations. So once I got to know Jonathan a little bit, and once I had read the book, it was clear to me that I had to do it, that it was something that made me feel seen, which is something that I say about a lot of great art. I feel like a lot of great art makes you feel seen in the context of the everyday, as a human living their life in the everyday. And that's how I felt about this book. You know, I love these things that show you what it's actually like to experience things as a human in a very specific context, in the everyday, which is sort of what I try to do in my own work. So I recognized that in this, and I felt like it was just an absolute no-brainer, if you will, that I needed to do it. Yeah.
So it's a good job it was on your case, then, isn't it?
No, it is. It is, and I like the way that Jonathan just slowly conquered me. You know, it's you know, because you surprise yourself. You know, you think that. You know, I have a difficult time feeling comfortable in community, and Jonathan brought me into this community where I feel very comfortable, you know, with Ed and everybody else. And so it's been quite an epiphany for me, actually. It's quite emotional, and it's very, very special, I think. And it's all down to Jonathan, so I think. Yeah.
Can you tell us, so compared to your usual art form, words carry much less weight in traditional ballet? Well, they usually don't carry any weight at all. Were you excited about shaking things up and pushing the boundaries of what people might expect from the art form?
It's funny, I didn't really think about that. I have to say, it just felt like a very natural thing to me. I don't know the ballet very well. Of course, I've always been in awe of ballet, personally. I've watched, you know, I've been in awe of the discipline and the beauty and what it takes to actually bring a production to the stage. But I don't really know that much about it. But it seemed, it just seemed like a very natural, organic idea. It made sense to me. So I didn't really have to think about it. I didn't have to think about how I was going to do it. I just did it. Jonathan and I had several conversations about the themes in the book, and we immediately and sort of intuitively agreed on what the themes were, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
And so it was quite easy to just step into that. I think, yeah.
Fantastic. And speaking of dancers we're all in awe of, Ed, so you've taken on many roles, but this one is quite unusual in that it's the body of George. What's it like to embody a character's lived experience while another performer gives voice to his thoughts?
It's an extra kind of, I don't know how to say it, like an extra meal in a way. You get more.
I'm really sorry, I'm going to stop you there. Can you speak into the mic? Go on.
It's a bonus because you get more information to have the opportunity to physicalize and tell the story that way. So it's actually easier.
Oh.
I don't have to think so hard. It's there. It tells me what to do in a way, as well as, the beautiful music without the words tells you emotionally already tells you how to feel, and then the words describe what's going on in the body, outside of the body, in the world around. It's been a really lovely, easy kind of ride.
Fantastic. And I'm sure there are lots of people in the audience who've loved your work with the Royal Ballet, me included. But are there any of your most famous roles that prepared you for this dual role, or the essence of the character?
Not really.
It's different to anything you've done?
It's very different, which is why I dug myself up out of retirement to do it, because I wanted to experience a role for someone closer to the age that I am. I'm not playing older. I'm not playing younger. I'm, of an age. I'm nearly 50, and it seems like the right time. If I'm going to tell this story, then it should be now, while I can. And also to lots of ballets. There aren't that many in the 20th, 21st century. Kind of canon of work which are about the love between two men, and I thought it was a really important moment to tell the story.
Fantastic. And as we mentioned earlier, you opened in Manchester. The two of you, were there any highlights of that run? What really stood out for you, would you say?
Well, that really sweaty hug at the end of it between the two of us.
Sweaty hug's good.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
No, it's quite nice, but there is a lot of connection on stage, and I suppose, feeling that comfortable in the context of doing something like that could be quite nerve-wracking. Introducing a piece like this, feeling that confident about it, and I mean, for me, watching Ed and John on stage and all the rest, do what they do, it's just. Because I'm on this beautiful little perch, which you probably saw before, inside the head. So I'm up there the whole time, watching the proceedings, and when I'm not singing, and the whole thing was a great moment, I'd say.
So, John, we're going to see a rehearsal now, but can I just talk to you about the music? Because in the shows, the music is being performed live by you, as you've said, and Jasmin and the Manchester Collective. Tonight, we're rehearsing to working demos, which is not quite the same as hearing it live, but very excited to get a taster all the same. Could you tell us about the music that is part of this rehearsal we're about to see?
Sure. This song is called Am Now I, and this is one of my favorite parts of the book. And I mean, it's the very beginning of the book, and it's really, I'd really never heard an author describe this moment of, when you're in a situation, when you're deep inside of grief or, experiencing a tragedy, the act of becoming conscious in the morning and the fact that, we usually have a little bit of respite before we become aware of ourselves and realize our situation as a human again. And when you're in something like grief, there's doesn't seem to be any respite when you wake up in the morning. You wake up in that state that you were in the night before, And it's horrifying. It's a very horrifying thing, and it's described so beautifully in this book. I've become sort of evangelical about trying to get people to read it, even though it took me 57 years to do it myself. But it's so beautifully described, and I have often thought about this moment in the morning when you become aware of the self again. And that's exactly what is described within this song. There's all of these processes that take place inside the brain, and the body reacting to the brain, and then one becomes aware of one's thoughts. And so I've tried to do what he did with this song. That's...
Okay, and Ed, is there anything you would like to add about the rehearsal we're about to see?
No, I think it'll do it all itself. It's the beginning of the show. So this is how it starts.
It should make sense. Okay, great. I'm going to leave you to it. Rehearsing Am Now I from A Single Man. This is Ed Watson and Jonathan Watkins.
Brilliant. Take the stage. My lyric. I'm not going to be singing, but I've got these lyrics. So we're like deep into rehearsal now, and we're really ready to do the show. So like we're in a really good place. So Ed is in top form. Yeah. So I try to be as authentic as I can. So I'm not going to just know Ed like that you might have seen in Insights before. I'm not going to say like just because it's a note, you know? So I thought it'd be interesting for you to hear like how we've come up with some of the movement. Some of it's like literal, responding to what John has written, and some of it is like responding to the book, and some of it is just more abstract. And I just wanted to say, these are the intentions of some of the choreography, but it doesn't mean that all of this needs to be understood, you know? So like, you don't have to get it when you see it. So you could see it without me explaining it, hopefully. But these are just the kind of instincts and the like impetus behind some of it. Okay? Good. Okay, so we start in the body shape. And this was really an idea that comes around in the piece that is this move. So it's very much like the heart and soul. And as John's song says, and the book says, it's about like coming into consciousness. And so this kind of spiritual element is kind of awakening the body. And so Ed sort of, so you awaken the body, and then it's almost like this kind of self-regard, might not be a word, but yeah, like this kind of self, like looking and feeling the body in space. And the next thing that we were doing is, like the song says, like fear tweaks the vagus nerve. And so this is fairly literal, so he's actually doing that. So, and you come through, and then up, and the self-regard again, yeah? And then I wanted to we were kind of looking, weren't we, Ed, of like waking up every different element of the body. Is that kind of what you're thinking there? Like, so, yeah, you're waking up every kind of sinew and feet and legs and waking up the body, yeah. Quite self-explanatory, isn't it? Like, yeah? Sorry, it's been such a long day, hasn't it? But we're really happy to be here, but it's been quite a long day, and that's the insight. So we deserve it. So it goes into here and into like a self-hug. Yeah. And breaking through. So it's waking up the body really and pushing through. And like, yeah, taking up space, really. And then, sorry, I'm not that good at words. So this, I know things that cannot be unknown today. And then this was like kind of starting the engines, really, like starting bigger and then expansive and through. Yeah. Then this next move was, I wonder if anyone's felt like this, kind of like, oh, I can't get up today. I'm like going to pull the duvet up and I'm not going anywhere. So that's my book. Yeah, so it's kind of like, it was kind of like pulling up and then pulling the duvet and like hiding behind, yeah. And then, yeah, water, not for chocolate. So yeah, it was like splashing water in our face because we've actually got to get on with the day. Yeah, there's no kind of hiding here. So, I feel like I'm doing like DVD extras, like, you know, when you can like watch a film. So yeah, splash water and let that go down. And you're feeling the floor, like feeling the space again. Now the cortex tells the eye which moves must be employed. So that was fairly literal again, like the eye is actually moving. And that like it's kind of awkwardness after that. Yeah. Then the lower back is arched, the legs are stretched, the fingers clench, relax. Yeah. So I kind of like, so the kind of literal things, and then nothing's mentioned about water splashing in the face, but that it's kind of like going between, so like the abstract and the kind of literal. Where did we get to? Yeah. The body's ordered out of the bed to the John, literal, to renew the facts. I am now, is it aware of what it's lost? So this is like John saying, like speaking mind to body, and so we sort of wanted us to take in our own being, our own body. Right, and then gaze into the mirror now. Oh no, look what it's done to itself, remember what it costs. Gaze into the mirror now. So like, if you've seen on the pictures, there's an amazing design, and it's like what we call airfix, you know, the planes that you used to make models of, if you don't Google it, airfix models. So like, the airfix model of the design is like all elements of George's life, and that's all being pulled together at different moments, like in different scenarios. And so in front of him here is his apartment. And so he literally does gaze into the mirror now and sees the faces of the past, and this is his lover coming on in memory. And wash and shave, comb and brush. How long will this one last? And how long will this one last is referring to, in the book, George is just walking down the stairs and he has a spasm or a panic attack, and his body is like reacting to it. And so I really wanted to represent that here, and show that like this is the kind of delicate place that he's in, like feeling grief. At this moment, just some time has passed since his love has died, and so it's very raw. And so, am now, the corners of the mouth draws down. Am smiling is replaced by frown. Could the spasm be here? Shall we have a go? Yes, let's have a go. Oh, I've got to do the music, haven't I? Okay, so Ed, we're going to have just the piano intro, I think, yeah.
and now I am. Fear tweaks the veins nerve, the spike ends before it began. And now I am, now I am I, who I was before. So this I know stands which cannot be unknown today. Out of dead spawn into light, no black and white, there's only gray. And now I am, now I am I, who I was before. How did I learn how to play this day which lies in store? Today is unavoidable. It's too now to be new. And now I am, now I, what am I now? Now the cortex tells the eye which moves must be in blood. The lower back is arched, the legs are stretched, the fingers clench with eyes. The body is ordered out of the bed to the job to remove the facts. And now I am, now isn't aware of what it was. Look what it's done to itself. Remember what it caused. Gaze into the mirror now. See the faces of the past. Wash and shave, comb and brush. How long will this one last? And now I am, now the corners of the mouth dragged down. And now I am, now I am, smile is replaced by frown.
I mean, no notes for now. Yes, I'm happy with that. Moving on. Thank you, Matt.
You're going to get a glass of water, but Jonathan, I need you back here, please, if you don't mind. And to tell me about the next bit of rehearsal that we're going to see, please help me welcome Jonathan Goddard and composer Jasmin Kent Rodgman. Woo! So, before we speak to you two, I'm just going to quickly ask Jonathan about what we've just seen. It was brilliant to see you in action with Ed. Why did you want to share that particular extract with audiences? We heard John Grant. We've got two Jonathans here, John Grant, so we're going to try not to get mixed up. Why did you want to show us that extract?
Well, I think technically it's the beginning of the show. I don't want to give too much away. And it's a really nice moment to see sort of the style of the show, of how the songs work with the movement in that case. And so, Am Now I is the first song. It's coming into existence, coming in, it's awakening, it's beginning our show. And so it just felt like a really good thing to share with everyone as a kind of the style of how we're approaching that. And similarly, going on now is I wanted to work on something that was of Jasmin's work and kind of describe and show how it blends in with what John's work is in the show.
Okay, right. So, Jasmin, let's talk about your work. The score is such a crucial part of holding together the dual strands of voice and movement in this particular ballet. You created the music for the section we're going to see rehearsed now. Can you tell us about it? Is it representative of your music throughout the piece?
Yeah. Well, as you've heard, John is, the internal monologue of George. And so when Jonathan came to me, the sort of premise was the score has to represent both daily life, but also a series of memories of Jim. And so throughout the whole ballet, we're with him in college, we're with him, in a car park, we're with him at a bar, etc. But at every one of these locations, we also get a sneak peek into George and his memory of Jim. And those little snippets, whenever we think of sort of a loved one that we've lost, you get details of utter joy and sometimes rose-tinted glasses. But then sometimes, and these details are just as important, you get little glimmers of also the sort of little bits of them that maybe annoyed you, or a little bit of sort of sizzle in your relationship. So this memory is very much representative of one of these sort of really beautiful, intimate moments between George and Jim. But this one's about daily life, sort of just being around one another, being at home. That's glorious, but actually, there's a little bit of a memory of Jim being a bit of a hypochondriac, or there's a bit of sort of tussle there. So that's, I'll let Jonathan speak to the movement, but that's, this is definitely indicative of that journey and that arc throughout the whole ballet.
Brilliant. So, Jonathan Goddard now. Let's talk about Jim, because you're playing George's deceased partner is one of your roles in this ballet. We'll come on to the other one in a second. He appears in flashbacks in the film that many people may have seen, and as part of George's memories in the main narration of the novel. Jasmin just touched on this being a memory, what we're about to see. Can you tell us about your character and how he fits into, structurally, the story that you're telling?
Yeah, I mean, I had to start by obviously reading the book, and when I knew I was going to be playing Jim, trying to get as much detail as I could from the book about Jim, his life, their past. And actually there isn't much, so I realized there's quite a lot of space to find who he could be. I think the big thing that I sort of hung on to was that George is very much an academic, works in a college, and I think Jim represents maybe his sort of complementary side, so probably a bit lighter, definitely younger, and I think what's interesting to me is to try and play somebody that is appearing as a memory. So it's not a flashback, it's a memory inside George or Ed of his vision of who somebody was.
So it's truer to the novel then, actually, than the film was?
Yeah, we love the novel. I like the film. I've not watched it since 2008, but I love the novel. We love the novel, don't we?
I haven't seen the films.
Oh,
I
yes.
didn't watch it. Yeah.
Good.
Oh, interesting.
You're the fave.
Love Tom Ford, love the film, but...
Right, so that's Jim.
Yep.
So tell us, you're also alternating in the role of George alongside Ed. You're creating two physical interpretations of the same character. Did you and Ed discuss the role with Jonathan together, with Jonathan Watkins together, or did you work separately and come up with your own takes? Does it matter if your takes are slightly different, or does that add to the experience?
Well, the three of us were in the studio together when it was being created. I think I wanted to make sure there's enough space that everybody can kind of have their vision. Jonathan's amazing as a creator. I think he gives you a lot of space, but also he's incredibly musical. So actually you're tied to a sort of really incredible supportive map. So there is interpretive space there, but also you're really following and John's lyrics. There's a lot of structure. So that kind of keeps it similar. And also it's inspiring to see what Ed does. So, you just feed off of that. But we made it as a trio.
Great. Right, so Jasmin, we're going to talk to you later about your collaboration with John and Jonathan Watkins. But before we go into this rehearsal, Jonathan, is there anything else you want to tell us about the piece we're going to see?
Well, just right in this moment, I think I'll switch it and do it. I think we'll see it first, and we'll have a little run of the memory, if that's okay. I think it's good to say, like, there's 9 of these memories throughout the show, and I label this one domestic. So I label it because it feels like we're looking at 2 people that have found their domestic rhythm and they're living together, and perhaps it's like 4 years into the relationship and we're plucking out, as Jasmin said, like the hypochondria. They're like reading on opposite sides of the sofa. They're getting on top of each other in quite a small kitchen in 60s California, So there are all these things that we've sort of like brought in that the book gives us, and I've tried to kind of encapsulate this in like the domestic life of George and Jim. There's also like their sex life. There's also the first time they met. Like, there's these different...
Love it all.
Huh?
Love it all.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so that's probably what I would say. And I think, I don't want to over speak about it, but I think we'll just let it be and see what comes up.
Okay, so Jasmin and I, we're going to leave them to it to rehearse Memory 4, or Domestic, from A Single Man.
Cool. Is that okay? I think I'll just get the music, and then I'm just going to check that this is right. Yeah. I don't have that, unfortunately. So I think if Ed, you're in the moment, and I can just play on straight into I See the Hands. Yeah. From figure 62. Here we go. All right. That was brilliant. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I got really intrigued there, and I know we've had a discussion, but I'm interviewing you now.
Maybe it's down in the house.
Oh.
Maybe like I don't know. I have seen pictures of the property that Isherwood was thinking of. It's a house that he had in LA, where him and somebody who could have been the inspiration lived, and it's sort of wooden and looks quite decrepit.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Nice.
Well, but I'm a hypochondriac, so
Yeah.
it's probably not real.
Good. What are you reading? I'm putting them on the spot here.
Just the paper.
Paper.
Dailies.
Right. And no novels, books of the time. What are you reading, Jim?
Oh, like where to go out, maybe? Kind
Okay.
of, time out or something. Like something to do on Saturday. That's what I
Nice.
think. I'm that kind of,
Right.
let's get out, I think.
What are you reaching for in the kitchen?
Plates, cups,
Yeah.
stuff, cupboards,
Yeah.
moving, no room. That's
Yeah.
in the wrong place. He's put everything in the wrong place. I'm moving it. It's annoying.
Oh, it's like, from my head, it's tin meat or something.
Tim me.
Yeah, feels kind of 50s,
Like Spam?
60s. Yeah, well, it
Spam?
seems sort of American. I don't know
Okay.
why.
Nice.
Specific.
You've passed the test. Well done. They didn't know that was going to happen. Cool. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. The timing is, we were on it for the 5 booms. Just on it. This timing is lovely now, going around.
I got a bit close.
Yeah, that's falling in.
Yep.
This pose comes back. This is quite a spiritual pose that comes back. Watch out for it later on in the show when you come and see it, if you come in to see it, if you've managed to get a ticket. I think, are we all right for time? Yeah, should we move on or do that again, or what do you want to do?
Do it again.
Yeah, happy
Do
to
it again?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it again.
All right, great.
And we'll be thinking about that.
All
The
of it.
spam,
Spam.
the paper,
The damp.
the reach, the damp. Yes, we'll be thinking about that. You don't need to know that, but it's good. God, they're good artists, aren't they? So good. Right, here we go.
And Jonathan, wishing you all the best for opening night and your performances throughout the run. Give them a round of applause, everybody. That's where we'll leave the rehearsal for today, but our evening isn't over. To tell us how they've shaped Isherwood's beloved novel for the stage, please welcome back 3 of the creative team. Choreographer and director Jonathan Watkins, singer-songwriter John Grant, and composer Jasmin Rodgman. Welcome back, everybody. Well done, Jonathan. That was great. So, right, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Tell us about when you three first came together. Was it, did the sparks of creativity fly from the start?
I would say yes. I mean, it was, you know, I think, didn't you come to a show? I was on tour at the time, right? You came to a show and we connected there after having several meetings with my manager, Fiona. We sat there and talked. I needed some convincing, as I talked about earlier. And Jasmin, you and I were introduced through Fiona Bryce,
Yes.
who did the arrangements
Yeah.
for the songs, and you came to one of my shows, and that's where we met for the first time,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Ambushed you
Yeah.
backstage.
And then we had a couple of those dreaded Zoom meetings, because I went back to Reykjavik, where I live currently, for some reason. And
And did you know you were all checking each other out? Do we all think the same thing? Is this going to work?
I mean, I didn't have any. I have to say, I didn't have any doubts. I truly didn't. It didn't enter my mind that Jonathan would, you know. It was clear that that his vision was going to be, that he was going to pick the right people for it. And I mean, Jasmin and I, we connected right away when we met at my show afterwards.
Yeah.
We didn't really have any trouble at all bringing the two different things that we were doing together. We just intuitively, we talked about the themes like I discussed earlier. It was very important that we decide on the themes and on the specific sections of the piece. And then we sort of went into our separate corners for a while. I mean, I was in Iceland in January and February. It's very dark there. And I'm sort of all by myself in my apartment, which is the way I prefer it, especially when writing. And we just went to our separate corners and started doing our thing. And it was quite a while before we started piecing them together.
Yeah, that's
You know?
true. But I think when we first met, the reason, I think everybody here, as you can tell, the beautiful thing is that everybody was very open and open to being vulnerable. You know, I think when you're creating a piece about grief and love and loss, and about the love between, you know, two men, you have to sort of lay your cards on the table about why you're here and what's important to you as a creative, as a human. And I think, you know, when speaking to Jonathan, when we sort of first started, like, you know, are we going to do this? And meeting John, it became very apparent that everybody there was willing to do that, and that everybody was taking care of that sort of space. I think that's incredibly important. You don't always get that, because it's a hard thing to do, I think. But definitely felt that sense of openness and vulnerability, which allowed us all to like really connect early on, I think.
Go on.
I just think it's really worth saying that, like, we really hold and care about what we do. And it's a vulnerable thing. It's really hard to do this work, and it's challenging. And you know, like in what we want to do and what we're passionate about, it's really difficult. And like it's been really challenging. This show, you know, it's been a long time in the making, and getting the right people, and you know, being able to like creatively be open and vulnerable with each other in order to create the best thing that we can. And like you said, Jasmin, like it's about life. It's about the life experience and some of the things that are experienced in the book, like I've experienced in my life, and like, you know, the doubt, the trust in your body, the like, can I do it? Should I do it? What? You know, we're all there. We've all had that, haven't we? Whatever you decide to do with your life, it's difficult.
Can I ask you about, because I reread the book recently, and if you see the film, I know you're possibly not a fan of the film.
No,
but
I am. Can I just say, if Tom Ford's watching this stream, which I doubt, I love the film. I think it's amazing, and it's a different interpretation of the book.
It's so it's very different, isn't it? Because George's suicidal thoughts run all the way through the film really heavily, whereas in the book, he's still got his zest for life. There's that scene where he goes to the gym and he says something like, I'm still a contender, and he's alive. So what was so obviously you all came to this project with previous experience of the book stroke film, or if you didn't, you then went and read the book. How did you decide what to do about that? this either being suicidal or having a lust for life. I mean, talk about one extreme to the other. Where did you want to go and how did you discuss this?
So for me personally, the reading of the book is like he doesn't take his own life. And speaking to different people who've studied Isherwood, and the book says, let's suppose. So let's suppose this could happen. Let's suppose that. A novel can do that really well. A film can't do that as well. I mean, it can, but a novel can say, this could happen tonight and this could happen tonight. And I was drawn to that by Catherine Bucknell, who wrote a big book on Christopher Isherwood, and she discussed it at length with me, that he was saying the future, he's talking about a future. He's talking about meeting someone else. That's the little fires ignited under him with his relationship with Kenny, who's the younger character in the book. And so I see it, my positive reading of the book is, I'm going to embrace all of this and I'm going to go forth and I'm going to try and be a single man because I am on my own, but I've had this great love and I'm going to try and be a single man.
And you were all bought into that take?
Yeah, we discussed it a few times. Like I said, it was pretty intuitive I don't think it can be overstated how important Jonathan's role is on all of this, bringing people together, coaxing out of them what he knows they're capable of, in this very specific context, all collaborating together. So it's an incredible thing. I remember as a child watching movies and never really terribly interested in who the director was, as a young boy. But then coming into the knowledge of what the director actually does, is an incredible thing, and it's an incredible talent. So, we didn't have difficulties at all deciding how we were going to do this. It made sense. We wanted to be true to the book, which is we've discussed was a different beast than the film. I loved the film too. I saw it back when it came out. I can't believe it was 2008. That makes me want to fall off my chair. Yeah.
I bet there's dancers in the Royal Ballet who weren't born.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We're all on the conveyor belt.
Speaking of the conveyor belt, let's talk about, somebody mentioned earlier, it's about death, grief. I'm not asking you about your personal experiences of grief here, but what drew you, the three of you as artists, to exploring that why did you, Jasmin, want to get into that central theme?
I think it's what I really love about sort of answering the previous question and this at the same time. I think what I really love about grief, this rendition is, this version of the play about not necessarily leaning too much all the time into the darkness, is that actually I think it makes the grief and the loss even more poignant, even more emotional, actually, when you show the joy of that rather than always the darkness. I mean, isn't that what makes it so painful? And so actually I think that's a beautiful way to approach it. And the thing that's really drawn me in is this is a quintessential, novel and an incredibly brave piece that talks about the love between two men. But the thing that it does that's so important as well is, and that I think this production and what Jonathan and we are all trying to say, is that grief and love and loss is essentially a human experience. And we're all in it, and we're all in this world, and we really want to bring people into that. But the ingenuity of parachuting up into this incredibly profound space, but also at times sort of your grief sitting side by side between being on the john or, brushing your teeth, it smacks us in the face when we least expect it. And I think all of those different rhythms and paces of life, especially when one is going through this kind of grief, that's what really drew me in. So that's sort of when it does this and what happens to us inside when we experience that. So yeah.
Can I ask about, we've talked about previous incarnations of this story, the book and the film, but can I talk to you about other dance pieces? Because obviously you're being very ambitious here and combining spoken word, dance, original music. It's a rare hybrid, but these things have been done before. Were there any examples of this, Jonathan, that were particular inspirations to you? Or were there any cautionary tales or any that you wanted to avoid?
Well, the one that comes to mind is Seven Deadly Sins, which Bertolt Brecht. It's been done in very different versions. Will Tuckett did a version that I danced in with Zinaida Janowski, and Anna, the main... Yeah, Martha Wainwright was
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Zinaida was Anna 1 and Anna 2. So there's that's like a bit more incorporated, and so that kind of might have been there. Some it's not like a direct inspiration, but that I knew that had been done. But I think the kind of initial seed of the idea was because of mind and body, and to kind of have the bodies play out the narrative here and the mind be quite separate, rather than like fully integrated, which is like what Anna and Anna 1 and Anna 2 in the productions that I've seen of Seven Deadly Sins. But that's the one that kind of comes to mind. But
As a successful one, you're being very diplomatic. I like that.
as a what?
As a successful one. I said, were there also any that were cautionary tales and you're being classy and avoiding?
I don't know, because honestly, and I'm not just saying it, I think if you create anything, I think that's the thing.
Yeah, no, I
like,
agree.
you know what I mean? I mean, we're in such a critical state with everything, and if you get something off the ground, that's the win, I think. And so I try to like not be, because you don't know what's happened, you don't know what the intention is, and what the kind of like, what they're trying to be and do.
Can I talk
Why
to
are
you
you
about...
thinking of any?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just...
know any.
I'm aware that it still feels radical and brave, and you're pushing the boundaries. You know, and it's that thing about taking risks. Sometimes it doesn't always... but anyway, never mind about that. Tell us about... Let's talk about the 1960s.
Yeah.
The setting for the book. Did it influence the music and the movement?
Shall I kick off?
Go on, Jasmin.
I think we spoke a lot actually about that sort of era. And for me, actually, the 60s was an incredibly fertile, experimental time. You've got things like synthesizers really starting to, come into the fore in music, and you've got all these different genres suddenly like breaking all the boundaries, like rock, rock and roll, pop, etc. Things are like rapidly sort of evolving and changing. And the same with classical music. There was I looked a lot to like American minimalism, people like Meredith Monk, who actually herself embodies this beautiful sort of interdisciplinary sort of practice. So I think there was a lot of that for me in there, sort of rattling around in my head, which manifested in, when you hear the score, there's, obviously we've got Manchester Collective, our ensemble, but they're all hooked up to these guitar effects pedals. So, you would have just heard at the very end of, Memory 4, we suddenly slam crash into something else, which you'll find out when you come see the show. But that you can go from sort of a very acoustic chamber sort of sound to suddenly come crashing into this sort of raucous electronic texture. And it includes samples from this incredible artist, Benj, who John introduced me to. So that's an example, actually, of our collaboration. And he works a lot with the Buckler synth, which was being created in the West Coast alongside Moog that was happening in the East Coast. And this is actually an example about how our collaboration just fed into one another. But I think, yes, the 60s was, a big influence, I think.
And how about the movement, Jonathan? Did it influence your choreographic language, the 60s?
Did you have anything to say, John, on the music, or?
I was just not really. I was just thinking. I was thinking about the beatniks and jazz. The 60s and that sort of thing. And for me, I grew up playing classical music, which is So I was thinking about classical and jazz. And we wanted to be cognizant of keeping it in that area. But we also went into some electronic realms that don't smack of the 60s very much, So we didn't limit ourselves, but we were cognizant to keep it in that realm,
Yeah, and on the movement, yeah, there's kind of quite a lot of different inspirations, but I think to name a few is like, there's quite a bit of Fosse in there at times, which is like, you know, late 60s and 70s, and I kind of like just was inspired. I didn't like, let's do Fosse, but it kind of just came out. Yeah. And yeah, there's like, yeah, I think that's evident like when you see this one bit. And yeah, I was just like inspired by kind of like ecstatic dance for like Charlie and the character, and kind of like wild and bohemian and like what that was doing in the 60s. And also finally, like also thinking about like gender and like how women and men were portrayed in the 60s, and obviously like influenced by costume and like the setting, and really like the two-dimensional characters of the book, because George is very much the central character and these fleeting other characters are around him. So just kind of thinking about like very clear like gender roles like around that time.
Right, so you've touched on this actually, mentioning gender roles, but can we talk about the social context of the 1960s? Because we've also touched on queer politics, and the book's quite political, isn't it? I mean, it makes points about, for example, George not being allowed to go to Jim's funeral. It talks about the local newspaper campaign against sexual deviance. How political did you three want to be? Jasmin's smiling.
No, I actually think, John, you should take it away. No, I think, because you're going to really hear it in John's music.
Go on, John.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of these themes that you see in the book, it is incredibly, you know, there's a huge section on the American attitude towards immigrants, for example, in the book, which I was surprised at how little has changed actually since the 60s and in the current climate. I mean, things have gotten a lot nastier, of course, but a lot of the themes in the book are so relevant at this very moment. So it was really, it was, I don't know, it was an interesting combination of this political slant that the book, the things that it talks about, those are the things that are being talked about today as well. So it is a very political piece, and I feel like it's very important that these things be said right now, you know.
Do you also think, so you were joking that your code name for the last rehearsal we saw, that piece, was domestic. And there is a lot in the book of just these little domestic, intimate details of two gay queer men in their relationship. That must have been really radical, and it still is, to a certain extent. Were you aware that putting those little details of intimacy on stage was a political act?
I think so, and I feel like that's what the beauty of the book is. Like, the relationship is detailed, you know, the relationship is human, the relationship has layers, it has depth, and that's what I was hoping for to create these interactions, these kind of, the detail of the choreography, and give the kind of space and stage for the developing relationship, yes, over 9 memories, but the kind of excitement of first meeting, and then the rhythm of life. This is the rhythm of life, more Fosse. And the rhythm of life, and like the sexuality of their relationship, and that, you know, we're showing that in the way that we can through movement and through ballet.
But, well, and you can go sexier with ballet and movement, can't you? It's so much more physical and sensual. Did you want to go sexy?
I mean, I think it's sexy in parts, but I guess like that's all it's all like in the beholder and the eyes of the person watching it. And you know, I definitely wanted it to go there, and there's a specific song that goes there, and you know, so there are. I guess it's like grief itself is not a constant feeling, and so life and its experience is fully peppered with all these different things and different spices.
Love it.
Print.
Hey, I tell you what, even in 2025, it strikes me that this is still quite radical. And even though ballet is such a queer-friendly art form, to be staging this piece at the Royal Opera House for the Royal Ballet, Are you aware, all of you, that this is a major moment?
I have to say, it feels quite special to me. It doesn't feel like things that I have seen before, you know. There's this attitude now, in the book, Isherwood talks about, within the context of him and his neighbors, about how first it was religion that said, this is unacceptable, this life, this choice, this lifestyle, of being who you are, this is unacceptable, and then that was taken over by psychology. Science took over and said, this is a mental illness. And then, then you went to the world of psychology saying, no, this is completely normal, just like being straight. And now we've gone back to the religious thing of, no, this is unacceptable. You have a theocracy literally being installed in the United States of America now. And as long as you have huge swaths of the population saying things like, why do you have to do that? Why do you have to show that? Why do you feel like you need to talk about it? I mean, the fact that somebody's saying that to you pretty much proves that you need to say something about it. Because if you can't, for example, I remember being on the radio in Russia and talking about being gay on the radio there, and having the hosts tell me that it was quite a brave thing to do because I could be killed or hurt on the street for talking about things like that open. And then the guy said to me, that's what the woman said to me, and then the fellow that was doing the interview with the woman said, well, why do you people feel like you need to talk about this, And I just said, can't you hear the two things that you just said to me? I could be attacked and killed on the street here for talking about this on the radio, and you're asking me why I need to talk about it. Because one needs to feel like one can be oneself without fear of death, without fear of being attacked, right? So as long as we have this element, we need to be doing these things. We didn't see very much, especially 60s, 70s, 80s, we didn't see things about the inner life of gay men, about what's actually going on. One had to present what one wanted people's perception to be of oneself. Because if you were homosexual, you were considered to be a pedophile. Those things just go together. Or, the things that you do are ungodly and dirty and disgusting. So I felt like it's really, we didn't see people talking about these things very specifically and showing them. Because people are still sort of recoiling in horror and saying, yeah, it's great, but that's a little bit too gay, Like the whole Ellen thing. That was so it does feel very important and unique.
And to have the Royal Ballet behind you making this strident political statement. Even this event we're doing is being live streamed around the world. How does that feel? To have the support?
I mean, I think one likes to feel like one said, like you want to feel like you said what you wanted to say at some point in your life. So it feels good,
Yeah, and I think as like a creative thing and as a piece of art and a collaboration and, I'm sort of facilitating and leading, but it is very much a collaboration. Like, we can't do this work without everyone, stage management, everyone that comes together. We can't do it as a single entity. And so like that coming together, telling this story is like really amazing. And especially, I've not been back in this building for 12 years, and I used to dance here, and it just feels very good, and I'm very grateful for the support to come back on these terms and present this work, and really proud of that.
We're nearly coming to the end, but I'd just like to ask a bit more about your collaboration before we do. Jasmin, is there anything that you feel as an artist you've really learned from the process of creating a single man in collaboration, this very special collaboration with these other artists?
Ooh. I collaborate quite a lot in my practice and life as a composer, but I have never worked with this level of collaboration, this level of trust. It takes a lot of trust, actually, in one another and in yourself, I think, to come together to create this work. And I think working with a single man on the team has actually just sort of shown what's possible. And that you can actually collaborate. You can collaborate with, another two sort of composers or creators of music don't often come together as well to create something. But what I've learned is also, as John actually said about Jonathan, you really appreciate, Jonathan sort of created a structure and a concept that allowed us to thrive alongside one another. And that is one on a meta level of what the ballet is trying to say is incredibly special, but actually practically and creatively, it really just set a sort of new way of working, and just shows actually that if you think with that much integrity and you really embody what it is you're trying to say within your process as well, the sort of level that it unlocks is a bit unreal. So that was an incredibly important sort of experience and learning for me.
Okay, Jonathan, it's all down to you, everybody's saying, so I need to give you the last word. What are you hoping? We're less than a week away from opening night, here in the Opera House anyway. What is the one thing more than anything else you're hoping that audiences will take away from A Single Man?
I think be there, get what you get from it, and that is enough. And that's what I'd say.
Great.
Yeah.
I want to say one thing.
Go on.
I was asked this in an interview the other day, and I surprised myself by saying, I hope people leave it being a little kinder to themselves, which I feel like is extremely important right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that grief doesn't have any prejudice, Like, we're not immune, no one's immune. Like, everyone is going to feel that, I feel. So that universal togetherness that we're all going to experience that we are all going to die. Spoiler. So, let's get busy living. You know what I mean? Get busy living.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jonathan, John, and Jasmin. I've loved hearing about your collaboration, as I'm sure has everyone else. Sadly, that is all we have time for, but I'm looking forward to seeing you on stage next week. I'm going to be there on Friday. Make it a good one. A Single Man opens in the Limbury Theatre here at the Royal Opera House on the 8th of September. Please visit our website for more information. I'd like to thank all our guests this evening, including our dancers, Ed and Jonathan. Let's have a round of applause for them. Thank you to our audience here in the Clore studio, and to those of you watching online around the world. We hope you've enjoyed this insight. Good night.